And that's when I feel that the regulation's going to coincide with cryptocurrencies at a similar time, because I feel people are going to cry out for a new system. So that's my opinion.
Hey people, how are you doing? Thanks for joining me on part 2 of my interview with Lee from SPQR. In our exciting first episode, we left off on Lee's thoughts of what the main catalyst of cryptocurrency adoption would be. And if you haven't watched that already, I recommend watching that first. In this episode, we'll be discussing, or should I say we discussed, how knowledge is power, and essentially how we as everyday people can position ourselves accordingly in anticipation of the digital change that is upon us, essentially. But with all that in mind, I really appreciate your guys' feedback from the previous episode, and I hope you guys enjoy this one. So I'll catch you on the next one.
So that's my opinion.
I understand it's likely a very, very well thought out and how do I say this, educated opinion, so I respect it. I do have a question though. How does that therefore place us as a community or as early adopters, so to speak? Because blockchain and distributed ledger technology are at the bed of this. Some people will argue even quantum computing, but that, I mean, it depends on who you are. I really don't know if we're there yet.
Don't even get me going on that. Do not even get me going on that.
But just considering what we know now, is it a blessing or a curse in your opinion? Because I feel like we're bearing relatively good news in that we're getting people ready for the change. Yes, everybody get ready. But it's not only met with ridicule. It's not only met with, oh, you guys are crazy and thinking up a bunch of conspiracies, or the world's not really going to switch or change is what people would think. Well, because probably they're not used to that kind of conversation topic or that kind of rhetoric. But are we looking, you mentioned the pin's going to be pulled from the grenade, like relatively around the time frame of the end of this year into the beginning of next, because of everything that has happened until this point. Do you think it's a blessing and a curse to know what we know? Or what's your opinion?
Obviously it's a blessing because we can see what's happening, which means you can position yourself to be able to protect your family.
Right.
And the reason which let's say influences me and gives me the enthusiasm to research as much as I have done is to protect my family, which is everything to me.
Right.
So like I say, I've hedged in silver and gold, I've hedged in cryptocurrencies, and made sure that I'm protected against whatever happens, because you just don't know what's going to be round the corner, right?
Right.
Me personally, if you can see the future or get an idea of what's happening in the future, I think that's you're in a better position to be able to prepare yourself for that if you're intelligent enough to do that.
Absolutely.
Is it a good thing or a bad thing what's coming? I think it's a bit mix of both. I think decentralization is generally good, but I think that it's going to be public for the general Joe public, and I think it's going to be private for the institutions and the people who don't want to be seen.
Right.
So it's going to be two rules set.
Okay.
So really, decentralization, does it really matter? Not really.
No, probably not.
I don't know. I really don't know.
We could argue the same for the current environment we're in right now, in that there's good and bad to it currently. What would be the difference if it changed? But
well, it would eliminate privacy, wouldn't it? Because obviously cash gives you a private transaction, and nobody knows. It's not on the books, it's not on a ledger or anything like that.
Right.
Whatever world we're going into, which we can all see, which is going to happen between 2025 and 2030, where we're going to a cashless society.
Right.
We go into a society where everything's going to be stored on a ledger. Even if you go and lend your neighbour £10 to pay his milk bill, as an example, it's going to be on a ledger, right?
Right.
And it can be seen. And that's where we're going. That's where we're 100% going to. In terms of the time scales, I don't know. I know that there's going to be a coexistence stage between the old and new.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you can't change a plane's engine while it's flying.
Right.
You're going to have to do it in parts. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think we're going to see central bank digital currencies that could be potentially gold backed.
It's looking that way, and that's a question that I was looking to transition after you'd come to some sort of a landing point with your direction on the overall digitalized world we're going into. Technically speaking, we've already been primed, in my opinion, for this because, well, it's rather convenient if you think about it that what's transpired over the course of the past 5 months has brought into question the quote unquote safety of using cash or coins or anything physical that you can hold. It only makes sense that,
and not only that,
right.
and not only that, in Australia they're limiting purchases already.
Absolutely.
On what you on over 10,000 Australian dollars, I think.
Right.
So it's already implemented. And then I went into a store earlier on today, and they wouldn't accept cash because of safety and spreading virus and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of strange in a way. But then I kind of get it. Do I believe that the virus is real or not? I can't really answer that, because I don't think anyone really knows.
Right.
People deep down will have their own suspicions, but it seems awfully convenient, right?
I agree with that, actually.
In terms,
I mean,
of
the question
money,
has to be asked though. Look, like it is something that piques my interest a lot when it comes down to its source. But at the end of the day, we're currently working with what we can control, which is our hygiene and so on and so forth. Our I'd like to think probably financial health as well, and positioning and thinking ahead and being critical with regards to the options that we currently have available to us. I think it's important to ask those questions. And I don't know, what is your overall take on positioning with regards to our current environment now?
Positioning what from my own personal point of view of what I've done. I can give you that. I can't give advice, obviously, but I can tell you what I've done. Absolutely. So the positioning I've done is I've got physical gold and silver as a hedge against, obviously, the devaluation of currency. I've hedged in some main cryptocurrencies that I feel are going to be successful over a period of time. There seems to be some lesser cryptocurrencies that are absolutely going parabolic at the moment.
Right.
With low supply. So I picked up a few of those,
right,
and moving straight back into XRP.
Supply and demand.
Yeah, exactly. So if, for instance, they've only got 10 million supply or something, and they've got a half decent use case and got some partners or suggestions of partners, I'll invest in that.
Right.
Get the pump of 80%, then move it back into XRP to grow my XRP holdings.
Right.
So that's what I'm kind of currently doing. Making sure that me and my family are debt free. That's a major one.
Right. Right.
And making sure that everything that I do is legitimate and above board.
Right. Beyond reproach. Yeah. Because if anything, that's something that you could get stuck on. Like someone could definitely either, you could essentially slow your progress down by doing things nefariously or illegitimately. And honestly speaking, going into a world where there is, as you're mentioning, less privacy than most people would probably desire, it really depends. If you have nothing to hide, you're fine. Let's just be honest.
But that's, I've actually said this before as well,
Right.
where like, I don't really mind if people know where I am in the world,
Right.
or if someone's got access to my bank account and look at the transactions. I don't really mind.
Right.
It will only be the criminals who will be concerned of this, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So I've not really got a real issue with it. What I've got a real issue is if like vaccines are forced upon.
I was going to mention.
let's say I'm not going to be the first one in line lining my family up for a vaccine when they roll out. Let's say.
Yeah, I interesting sentiment, and I like to say I probably agree with you on that one as well, because I mean, well, it really comes down to two things. If the downturn happens around the end of the year, and that's the same time frame in which they pass regulation for cryptocurrencies, but at the same time too, they mention something to the extent of, well, you have to get your vaccination at the same time, and if you don't, I've always thought of this, like hedging is extremely important in my own personal investment strategy or portfolio management strategy, in that if I don't have, you can't have everything in the same basket. That just makes sense. It doesn't make sense to have all you depend
Your
on
eggs in one basket.
in one basket. So
you've got to diversify, right?
Exactly. So what I as you're mentioning, I'm glad. I feel like I can even trust your opinion more now, because I'd like to say, take your investment strategy more with a logical approach, because, well, hypothetically speaking, say we get hit with an EMP. I play a lot of Call of Duty. And I mean, when I was in college, that EMPs were a thing that we all, quickly adjusted our kits to essentially have. And that would wipe out everything electronic within a certain radius. If that was to happen, and we were all tied digitally only, does that mean that all our wealth is inaccessible now? What happens then? That's
a very good question. That's a very good question.
And that's why I feel
that's why silver coins. That's why you got to hedge yourself, haven't you, on physical silver and gold?
I see. Excellent. Yeah.
Because and also a lot of people need to have, like, let's say, a strategy. If it does ever go that way, back into the medieval times of bartering.
Right.
Because before there was money, there was bartering, wasn't there? So, like, let's say I had eggs and he had potatoes and I needed potatoes. I would exchange 6 eggs for 4 potatoes.
Right. Absolutely.
So I don't think it would go back to those stages.
Hopefully not.
But people need to have that kind of mindset to be prepared for such a thing, because you just never know.
Absolutely. There's this thing that I was just discussing with my wife earlier this weekend about how it's important to plan. I mean, not every plan goes according to plan, but if you fail to plan, you virtually plan to fail. So, I mean, that's a long-winded explanation on how it's important to be prepared. But with that in mind, like, you have individuals that are tunnel visioned right now in the stock market because they see it's going up, only going up. And we have our orange friend down south. I'm in Canada, so it makes sense. Like the Trump's essentially mentioning, for the past few months, it's been a rhetoric of we're going up, everything's going well, we're recovering, it's the fastest recovery, A, B, C, D, to make everything to create the perception that everything is recovering or looking better. And mind you, I have no political affiliations. I could care less. In my opinion, it's all one. But with that's a totally different conversation for another time. I feel the individuals that have been sucked into the idea that the stock market is where to put your money right now, it could be the case because, well, technically speaking, they've been right since April. Like, everything's been recovering and going up since. So if you're looking to trade and do a swing trade for it, or a little bit of a medium term kind of investment strategy in which you stay in the market for a particular time and you have your stop losses, great. You could stand to make a lot of money, but
of course,
the question is,
course.
where is it all going? That's the question. Where's it all going?
Well, this is the thing. If you continue to pump money into the markets, it's going to give it stability, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, like anything, things lose value over time, even though it looks like the stocks are rising. And let me give you an example.
Right.
Let me give you Apple stock. Today, Apple stock, I don't know the price, but let's say for argument's sake that it's $100 a share. It's probably nowhere near that, but I just want to do it for easy math,
Yeah.
right? But just say we have inflation at a rate of 5% or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then we know that even if the Apple stock goes up to $110 in a year, that the inflation is going to kind of counteract that anyway. So it looks like the stock price is going up when really, no, it isn't. The currency is being devalued.
Yeah, because of value, exactly.
So things are increasing in price, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it gives us the interpretation and the impression that stocks always go up, where not really. It could be a mix of the currency being devalued alongside a stock going up.
Right. At the same time.
Okay, at the same time. But then I've got a different. This is where my opinions changed on the stock market from where I was a year ago. I was like, I would never invest in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've done, I've applied my skills of research to the stock market, and there are little treasure chests to find within the stock market as long as you spend the time to research.
Right.